Tag, 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 wonderful tag, glorious tag. Over the past few months, I have had comments asking what I think of tag, or asking me to do a video on tag. So this is for all y'all who asked for that. Today we're going to focus on Matt Slick's version of tag. For those of you lucky enough not to have heard of tag and not to have a clue what it is the transcendental argument for God, which I've always thought of as God by assertion. So let's go! Hi, my name is Scarlett, and I am an atheist and skeptic, and this video comes with huge, giant, colossal caveats. I am not a philosopher, and my knowledge of neuroscience is toward the toddler end of the spectrum, so I am wading into murky, for me, territory here. Beyond the usual Plato, Aristotle, Descartes dark triad, I have read a bunch of philosophers from a literary point of view, as well as literary theorists. And when I was doing my dissertation, I got really into the construction of identity with this book by Charles Taylor, Sources of the Self. Really fascinating stuff going way back in time. Again, more from a literary point of view. But anyway, I do have some informed opinions about how we come to knowledge about the world and the self. But again, caveats, this is not my expertise. I won't be doing syllogisms or modal logic or shit like that, okay? Also, for completeness, I have seen other atheists talk about tag through the years, namely Matt Dillahunty and Rationality Rules, and I am aware, thanks to several videos, about Alex Malpass's response to Slick's argument. God, I can't believe this video is 6 years old. I remember when it came out. Anyway, enough of the blibbity blab, let's get to it. So, according to LaWiki, here is how transcendental arguments function. The transcendental argument for the existence of God attempts to establish that denying the existence of God is self-refuting, as the existence of God is necessary for argumentation itself. The argument proceeds as follows. There is a transcendental unity of apperception, a set of categories that give rise to our present experience and make knowledge, and therefore argumentation, possible. 2. The existence of God is possibly necessary condition for the existence of this transcendental apperception, therefore God exists. What is this transcendental unity of apperception, you might ask? Following that link, we see that it is, in philosophy, a term employed by Immanuel Kant and subsequent Kantian philosophers to designate that which makes experience possible. The term can also be used to refer to the junction at which the self and the world come together. Transcendental apperception is the uniting and building of coherent consciousness out of different elementary inner experiences, blah, blah, blah. We'll stop there. It was interesting for me to see that it originates with Kant, was something I really wasn't aware of. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Kant was looking for a refutation to Descartes' idealism. The other thing that I will mention from this page from the Encyclopedia of Philosophy is that they say transcendental arguments are usually anti-skeptical in nature, getting you to doubt what you're skeptical of. Okay, that's all the formal philosophy we're going to do here. It's interesting, but I want to get to Slick's argument before the end of time and the heat death of the universe, so let's go see what is his project. Let's bop on over to Carm, his apologetics website, and look at it. He has a whole post on it. And frankly, I can see why people don't want to tackle what he has to say, because dude has a lot to say. This gives the impression that he has put in the time, so just give up. And, I'm tempted to. I think a lot of readers would glaze over, and true believers won't care. I don't think they'll bother to read it. They'll just look at it, click through. Yeah, our man Slick, he's a real philosopher, which, spoiler, he's not. He's an apologist who cosplays as a deep thinker. Some things he says here are commonplace and so banal that you would roll your eyes. While other times I think there is some language slippage. I won't deal with the whole page today because, my God, we would be here for hours and hours. We'll look at the short form today, but I'll come back to point out some things I think Slick gets wrong in his, thinking? Yeah, we'll go with that. Thinking. Let's break down what he says. I've rewritten his stuff to make it easier to deal with. All right, his number one is simply logical absolutes exist. What are logical absolutes, you ask? Well, this is what Slick says they are. Law of identity, meaning something is what it is and isn't what it is not. The law of non-contradiction, something can't be both true and false at the same time. And the law of excluded middle, which he abbreviates LEM, lol. A statement is either true or false without middle ground. In general, I don't have a problem with this. I think what he means is we can discover knowledge or the world is knowable. I would put some caveats in, like we humans have decided how to divide up our world, our lives, the universe, and all of that into categories. Everything in our physical universe is made up of smaller component parts, atoms, and they clump together in certain ways with properties we experience with our senses and that we can describe. And we can also describe things like our emotional states and other abstracts that are important to us. We can determine what systems are in play and name operations. What something is, its identity, is something people have determined and convey to each other based on what is important for us to understand at whatever point in time we occupy. Our own identity, I think, is something of an illusion. I'm not sure if that's part of the point of these. Just want to throw that in there. I am wading way out into philosophical territory here. I am not on solid ground, but I want to point out these things because I think apologists like Slick often seem like they believe in Platonic forms, like there is a thingness to all things, that God spoke into existence at creation. And really, categories, names, words are human contrivances to describe our experience. So I'll stop there so that we can move on. And just to sum up, okay, logical absolutes, the world is knowable. That's how I'm interpreting this. Number two, logical absolutes are conceptual by nature, are not dependent on space, time, physical properties, or human nature. They are not the product of the physical universe, space, time, matter, because if the physical universe were to disappear, logical absolutes would still be true. So I would agree that these logical absolutes are conceptual. They aren't physical objects. They are a description of how a physical universe operates. Everything is made up of atoms and cells and so on, which clump together in ways we can describe. Where I have an argument here is that if there were no physical universe, how could they be true? Like, the whole point is that we are describing what exists. We're describing how matter functions and operations occur. If nothing exists, how could there be anything with an identity? It seems to me at this step, you have to already imagine a God which is thinking these thoughts. But even if a God exists, it would be the only thing. I'm not sure how it exists if there is no physical universe. So basically, I think logical absolutes do not make sense if nothing exists. What is the verb for nothing? Nothing nothings, I guess? I told you I'm no philosopher. So anyway, this point is a fail for me, but let's keep going. Logical absolutes are not the product of human minds because human minds are different, not absolute. But since logical absolutes are always true everywhere and not dependent upon human minds, it must be an absolute transcendent mind that is authoring them. This mind is called God. I can agree that human minds aren't absolute and that logical absolutes aren't the product of human minds in the sense that no human mind literally produced them. But they are a product of the observation by humans about how the physical universe operates. Like, this is how our universe does its thing, and we can observe it and describe it. I have an issue, too, with saying that some absolute transcendent mind authored the logical absolutes. Like, these were laws that were written or composed or passed by a parliament or I don't even know what. I don't know what that really means. It seems to me this notion of an absolute mind is a result of seeing agency behind natural processes and maybe having difficulty accepting that chemicals react and do their thing without a mind controlling it. I may be missing something big here. You can let me know in the comments. But I get the impression that this is the same as the Kalam cosmological argument. The universe has to have a cause, and that cause is God. Here it's the fact that absolute laws need an absolute lawgiver, and that lawgiver is God. How about this is just a property of a universe? It's just how it exists, the way it operates, and we have been able to understand it and express it. Let's get to the end of Slick's short form argument. Furthermore, if there are only two options to account for something, i.e. God and no God, and one of them is negated, then by default the other position is validated. Therefore, part of the argument is that the atheist position cannot account for the existence of logical absolutes from its worldview. Well, God accounts for the existence of logical absolutes by assertion only. Here is the all-powerful doer of all things, and I can lay it down like a trump card. Don't really have to explain anything. That's the backstop to all of this. It's not good enough for people like Slick to say the universe just exists and this is its operation. You have to account for it somehow. But guess what? The theist never has to account for God. God can just exist and operate in its mysterious ways. Checkmate forever, atheists. I think Rational Wiki has the best summary of this. The transcendental argument for the existence of God, TAG, is an argument within the realm of presuppositional apologetics. It argues that logic, morals, and science ultimately presuppose a theistic worldview, as God must be the source of logic and morality. In other words, because God did it is claimed to be the answer to every question in epistemology, God necessarily exists. It has been widely discredited ever since the scientific Enlightenment, so naturally it remains hugely popular with Christian theologians and philosophers. That sounds about right. When I come back to look at some other aspects of the items Slick lays out in his long proof, yeah, we're going to go with proof, I might deal with this a little bit more. But this is what I think. I think that the universe is understandable to us because our brains evolved to make sense of our world. We can already observe how different animals make sense of the world. They can map their territory. They can learn what they need to survive. And we have a brain that can remember our own past, and we can project into the future. It can dream up things that don't exist. It can imagine imaginary beings that don't exist. Our brain can learn and retain knowledge, some of which can become automated, some of which needs to be rehashed over and over. Our brain has evolved with language to name and categorize and communicate all of our understanding to other humans. The more we understand about neuroscience, the less we need to think that we have some soul to hold our sense of self in place, or need a God to make any of this possible. Those are some of my thoughts on this version of TAG for now. I will come back and look at some more of them, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. You can put everything in the comments. Let me know what you think of my little philosophizing. Can't wait. While you're down there, you can like and subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff. The YouTube algorithm really loves you doing all the YouTube stuff. And if you like what I do, you can buy me a coffee. That link is also in the description, and I will be back soon for something more. See you then.